Wukong was shown for the first time 4 years ago, and it may be hard to believe that it was released, frankly, because I reached a stage where I thought it was one of the games that we only see it and it is impossible to download. But it was finally released, and in the past few days, there were a lot of opinions towards it, between supporters and fans. So is Black Myth Wukong a great game, but the reviewers have wronged it? Or is it really a boring game? I tried the game for hours, and in this video, we will talk about all these topics and answer all these questions. Like and subscribe to the channel, and let's start with our game. Starting from the first thing. Black Myth Wukong starts off in a very interesting way with a good introduction to its world and the basics of the game, and you quickly find that our game put you in the middle of the subject without a lot of introductions. And they told you to go enjoy a great gameplay and awesome graphics. I'll go deeper into the gameplay in a bit, but I'd like to start the review by talking about the visual and physical appearance of this game because they were the first thing that impressed me in Black Myth. When I first started playing, I immediately noticed the high quality of the animation with a high level of attention to the most precise details of the animation, not only in terms of the physics of the character's movement, but also in terms of its effects and interactions with other bodies. I like how when you go to a high place, the character's movement becomes slower. Logically. On the contrary, when you come down from a cliff, the movement becomes faster. The world is also alive, always moving with the influence of the air. When you walk fast, you fly around the things you have passed through. The creatures themselves also affect you. You feel it is real. And not just photographic objects put in shape only. Very simple details, many other games you might not even notice. But with Wukong, I like how they took care of it and how they're a small developer developing his first game. And yet, they fully understand the importance of focusing on physics and animation, because they give the game life, they make the game flexible, interactive, dynamic, and not just a game. Learn, you big game developers, or I'll destroy your house. Because Wukong's interest in physics never affected their interest in graphics, and they presented us with a clean, visual game, even though I have a fear of it. So Wukong is very beautiful in her world and in the graphics she presents. Her style of art is very beautiful. The Chinese gave it a nice look. I played it on the PC and it was good in general. I didn't face the amount of problems that other reviews talked about. On the contrary, I can tell you that the performance is very good. I relied a lot on the DLSS as it is a technology that I cannot play games without. It raises the frames noticeably and improves the performance of the game in general, without losing any quality. This technique always amazes me. I don't know how it works and how it feels like it's literally glitching frames. But I only activated the RTX when I wanted to show off the top of the graphics, especially since our game supports full ray tracing on the PC. Full ray tracing technology, the visual experience with it is amazing. Now rushing, which means you're attacking in your own style, not defensively. So, the more you advance, hit, and initiate the attack, you'll notice that the fight will be in your favor. And the more careful, defensive, and tactical you are in the fights, you'll notice that the game has become more difficult. Especially since our game has a system where when you hit the enemy multiple times, you increase the probability of the damage the enemy will receive from each hit, unlike when you only hit once or twice. That's not to say that executing combos is generally very useful in the game. This style of gameplay always raises the adrenaline all the time while I'm playing. I'm so excited. Keep in mind that Black Myth is not a Souls game at all, as some people think. No, it's far from it. In fact, the game is not an RPG at all. It's an action and adventure game. Kind of classic. The game has smoothness and skill, and the feeling of hitting is amazing to the farthest limits. There's a lot of fun in the game, honestly. Gameplay is the most important element in it, and we can tell you that the gameplay never let you down. You have abilities that open up with time and change a lot in the game's ideas. Now, those who know me know how much of a classic person I am in games. I don't rely on the amazing abilities and the things that the game gives you, but with Black Myth Wukong, I really like using it, and I found myself relying on it a lot of times. And at the same time, when I played in a normal classic style, I also found it welcoming me with a warm welcome, so you can use it. All the features and abilities are present. You can also play it in the traditional style. The fun of the game is supported by several small enemies, which will increase their diversity over time, in addition to the design of the great big bosses, which are really awesome. I can also tell you that the most thing that shocked me is all the Black Myth walking. I don't know when was the last time I saw such a diversity in leadership battles with such unique ideas. You see it in every leader, whether primary or secondary. What's shocking to me isn't the fact that there are so many leaders, but the idea that despite their large numbers, they are still diverse in a hysterical way, and it's rare that you notice any similarity between them. If the game took a century, It took 6 years to develop, and I think 3 years of them were spent only on the design of the leaders. Indeed, their level is higher than any expectations you can put. But if you want to put something, keep in mind that the game is a linear game, not an open world at all. It presents areas that seem open, yes, but they are not. It's not an open world. And even though I'm a fan of linear games, and I was very happy when I discovered that it's not an open world, I'd be lying to you honestly if I told you that I like this linear experience here. Because this leads me to my great problem with Black Myth. And what upset me the most is that my problem with Wukong is the same as my problem with any developer who is developing his first game. And that is the weakness of the design side. And when I say design, I don't mean the graphics, but I mean the design of the game itself and the way you progress and interact with it as a player and with its stages. I don't understand the idea of having several leaders behind each other without having a big gap between them. I mean, it's hard to put a leader, and then after a short period of time, you put a leader. A second hard boss? Not a good idea, to be honest. It's not just that the difficulty of the bosses is increasing. I mean, the game starts with the bosses being in the middle of the difficulty, and every now and then it gets harder and harder and harder. This might seem logical to you, that the game is getting harder with time, but in terms of design, it's a disastrous decision, because that's how you're ruining my experience, brother. It makes no sense to sit for half an hour trying to beat a very difficult leader. Then if I don't beat this leader, another one will turn out to be more difficult. Look, where's the feeling of reward that you're giving me as a player? Or are you rewarding me by giving me a more difficult leader? No, there's no reward at all. You're actually crushing me as if you're telling me, hey dude, did you beat the leader who pulled your hair out? Come on, take one that's harder than this one. And what made it even harder for me was the idea that the distance between the leader and the second player isn't the annoying short distance at all. What's more annoying is that there isn't that difficulty that keeps you playing the hard game continuously. I don't want to give an example of Sekiro, but did you see how in Sekiro, the whole game is hard from the beginning to the end? So you're always in the difficulty mode. Your brain is always in Black Myth. Wukong, the small enemies, despite their various forms, are very easy to deal with, and I've never seen a clear difficulty or a strong challenge they're presenting to me. They're just a constant nuisance passing by me while I'm moving between places, exploring them, and moving from one leader to another. So when I reach the leader, I'm not psychologically and physically prepared for this fight. All the ones I faced before were easy almost. Even with the progress of the game forward and the increase in the difficulty of the small enemies, they are still easy, brother. I have a lot of abilities that let me finish any fight in any way. Even the distribution of the difficulty of the leaders, ROM. Logically, the leader should be different in difficulty and not gradual in difficulty. For example, the leader is easy, then the next one is hard, then the next one is medium, then the next one is easy, and so on. As for hard, then harder, then harder. It's not logical at all. That's how I started to lose my interest in the challenge that was presented to me. And because our game is not an RPG, so when you get stuck with a difficult leader, you probably don't have that option to go and reinforce yourself again and play here again. So you will find yourself lost. You have to rely on your own skills in combat, which might make it boring over time. That's not to say that the design of the levels is weak and modest. This kind of game gives a lot of room for creativity in its design, because it's not a linear style, and it doesn't end in an open world. It's a mix of both. I mean, as a developer, you don't have a specific pattern, but still, I failed a studio to design good stages. Of course, this does not hide that in the game, in some beautiful stages. Because our game is huge, guys. We're talking about 6 main areas, divided into 6 chapters. All the shots in this video are taken from the first 2 chapters only to avoid spoiling the fun. But we can tell you that as time goes by, the environment will increase in its forms and artistic design, and even in its ideas, but will reduce the quality of the design in general. That's not to say that the game felt long in a noticeable way, and although I don't mind long periods of gameplay, especially since there's a variety of areas, enemies, and bosses, but the length of Black Myth made me start to feel the complexity of the game and the repetition of what it's doing with a very annoying pattern in the design of the stages. So, from now on, we can see the amazing amount of inspiration some players have for Wukong in the early hours of the game, and some may consider it the best game of the year. But we can also see a huge amount of them getting bored of it and maybe not even finishing it. Now, don't let my negative words that I said earlier deceive you. I said that the game made me angry. I didn't say that it's bad. I mean, it's true that it has problems, but it's not bad, and it's not bad at all. It's just a game that applied a lot of beautiful things, like the idea of the skill tree, which you can rearrange at any time. like the abundance of items, which the more you progress in the game, the more you notice how useful they are, like the very fun ways of playing, like a lot of things, and the mechanics that open up to you the more you progress in the game. I mean, it has a lot of beautiful and enjoyable things, but unfortunately, it's not fun. Journey to the West. I was surprised by the plot of the story. Later, I discovered that the game generally treats you like you've read the novel and understand the world and understand everything about it. Based on that, it gives you an impossible presentation of the characters and the world in general. This may make the readers of the novel happy, but I honestly didn't think that any of the ladies and gentlemen watching this video were actually listening to the novel. That's why my experience with the story was normal. Yeah, and I think a lot of you are going to be the same. Look, let me tell you the following subject. I am a person who has an endless appreciation for the work of independent developers. And honestly, what Studio Game Science did with Black Myth Wukong, I can't imagine being a game developer and being able to release a game at half of this great level. The work they did here is very big. It's true that our game is not perfect, and it's not even an excellent game in my opinion. But I see that the level that our game presented, with the consideration that it is the first project of its developer, is really amazing. Because Black Myth Wukong is a huge game, a mixture of charm, creativity, fun, and awesome graphics, and awesome gameplay. It's met with repetitions, skirmishes, and high-quality style, all of them gathered together to make a game that I can't blame anyone for its unparalleled rating. But I also imagine seeing a lot of people consider it their favorite game, one of the best.